anyways, it's a new year. It's another day at work. What I want to talk about today is the things that I miss from the 80s. So I got a little nostalgic on New Year's Eve. It was like Christmas. I spent it by myself, and I could have gone to my son's house, but to me, New Year's Eve and St. Patrick's Day have kind of turned into drunk driving amateur night, so I'm always scared to be out on those nights. And it might be an unreasonable fear, but I do know that on those two particular holidays here, people tend to imbibe more than they probably should, and sometimes they start much earlier in the day than they probably should. And so I don't go out. I think it's dangerous. So the things that I miss about the 80s, for sure the music, but the music's still around. I listen a lot to 80s music. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't come along with the rest of us. There are bands that have made some amazing music since then, but nothing like the hair bands, right? Home Sweet Home by Motley Crue, probably one of my all-time favorite songs. I just can't even, I can't with that, but Godsmack, for instance, I love them, and they are still making great freaking music, amazing music. So, no, I'm not just an 80s music purist, for sure. So, the music is always going to be first on most people's list. But I miss, everything we did was on the fly, right? Because we were, truly, honestly, we were the generation that we weren't allowed to be in the house. We had to be outside. We had to be, now, when we were young, we had to be able to hear my dad whistle. Now, let me tell you about my dad's whistle. You could still be 3-4 blocks away at 6 years old and hear your dad's whistle. So, we had to be able to hear my dad's whistle and come in. Then as we got older, we just had to tell him where we were going to be, right? And if we didn't need money, we were good. I remember one time asking for $2 to go skating, and my dad acted like I was trying to take out a loan equivalent to the national debt. There wasn't any money to play with. And especially in our family. We were the Goodwill shoppers way back then. And all the Goodwills had then were old lady clothes. I'm telling you that now. But I miss the freedom of just being able to be spontaneous. I realize now that was an indulgent childhood thing. I could go and be spontaneous and do something, but I'm not a bar girl. So I don't know where I would go spontaneously. The grocery store. Especially when it's late like it was that night. I don't feel like people meet up like they do anymore. And, if you look online for activities in your area, and maybe I'm on the wrong apps and I look at Facebook and I look at other things, but everything is RSVP and buy a ticket. That's not spontaneous. It's not. And so I was kind of all in my feelings, and I was thinking, when there's no place where people just go to be there and socialize. Even when there is an event, and I've been to plenty of events, people don't interact with one another. They find their little group, and that's kind of what they do. In the 80s, you could go to a big 50-gallon trash can bonfire, and you could meet 100 kids that you've never seen before in your life. And or two new phone numbers or whatever. Because back then we didn't have cell phone numbers. Cell phones, you had a phone number. You better take it out of your pocket before you did those jeans. Wash those jeans. So I miss that. I miss having a meeting place. Even though it moved, everybody always seemed to find it. Or enough people seemed to find it that it was the place to be. And you know what? Maybe that's why there is such a huge percentage of Gen X that are introverts. And I think it's because so much of our social life really honestly happened 100% organically. Like, it did. We didn't have to have apps. We didn't have to be online. We didn't have to have play dates. I never had a play date in my life. No, we didn't have play dates. So that's one of the things I miss about the 80s. The other thing I miss about the 80s, and yes, it's partly the place to hang out, but was going to the mall. And the funny thing was, I never went to the mall with a whole bunch of people. One, sometimes maybe two. And I didn't go for the socialization because I was always very shy. Not only am I an introvert, but I'm shy. And people may not believe that because I'm on here, but this I took a very, very, very long time to prepare myself for. So I would go to the mall and people watch. And I love to people watch. I do. I find it incredibly fascinating. You learn so many things about people just observing, right? Like, just keeping yourself on the fray. For the most part, I don't think that the general population of at least the U.S. understands. I know that we're all very different, and I know that we have our own ways of doing things and dealing with things and whatever, but people act very, very similar to one another. And that's something that I think gets lost in the translation of what it is to be a human being is, we might dilute our basest instincts, but we don't ever get rid of them. So they're always there. They're always floating there, under the surface. And if you watch, you can learn so many things about human beings. And of course, I was one of those kids that was in a household that was a little bit more Gen X than others. Meaning that you had to keep your head up because you didn't know when you were going to get hit. And that just was what it was. I'm not even going to go down that path. But I learned early on to pay very close attention to the subtle cues of a room, right? But I loved going to the mall. One, as someone who had no money, the mall was the best place to go to see, from what I thought as a young teen, how I should look, how I should act, how I should present. Like, I not only learned a lot about human behavior and enjoyed watching human beings, but I observed so closely because I wanted to fit in, right? I didn't want to be, just the poor girl that everybody made fun of my whole life. So I thought I would go where the upwardly mobile went, because you could see so many examples times when people are shopping and interacting, and malls had restaurants and candy stores and coffee shops and bakeries and things like that. So, you always had the food court. Yeah, I wouldn't give that experience back for anything, and I don't know how kids these days are getting that information except from TikTok influencers. And we saw people in the top, let's say 30%. We probably didn't see a whole lot of the top 10% in the malls, but maybe back then. But we definitely saw people in the top 30-ish% and could observe them in their natural habitat, right? Observe them doing things that they chose to go out in public and do. But TikTok influencers aren't, even if they're the top 1%, they are not acting naturally. They are performing. Everything that our children are being exposed to, 90% of it is performative. And that is another reason why I did this, because something has to be down to earth. Something has to be grounded. And, not a train wreck to watch. Like, there are times that seeing something wholesome or seeing something authentic, there is value in that. There's so much value in that. So when I think about the things that I miss, and I think about, there's a Bronco right behind me, and it's pretty, and it's red, and it's a Heritage. It might be the one that I saw the day that I had the cookie for breakfast, because it's got the same top, and it's a 2-door, and the white grill. I don't know, maybe it is. Squirrel. There's my brain again. There's some value to be had in just being able to observe people that aren't your tiny little universe, which is your family, or the people that are trusted with your care. And the last thing I miss for sure about the 80s is the clothes. There has never been a time that I'm aware of that fashion has been so extreme in every direction. Like, I saw some of the most beautiful dress shirts, slacks, boots combinations that teens were wearing. And then, of course, you had the whole Valley Girl scene that everybody, copied after Madonna started her whole thing. And there has never been a time where there was so much variety in fashion, in teenage selection. There hasn't been. There has never been a time. And I miss variety. I don't know if I'd go around at this age with my shoulder hanging out, but that's not true. There are some days where I'm wearing a tank top that I'd like something a little bit warmer, but loose, and I would sport one of the off-the-shoulder sweatshirts, for sure. But that's just me. Anyway, I am pulling up to work, and I'm gonna go start my day. And love you guys. I will see you later. And it's a new year. Let's get it going.